Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Cultivating the Culture. My name is Tariq Lang. I'm filling in for James Lang today. Today I'll be interviewing Brother Jameel Johnson about the Prince George's County Muslim Council. It'll be a very exciting show. Stay tuned and don't go anywhere after this commercial.
Well, do you feel that you then perhaps now should take over the leadership of the black Muslims?
No, I have no desire to take over the leadership of the black Muslims, and I have never had that desire. But I do have this desire. I have a desire to see the Afro-American in this country get the human rights that are his due. I believe that the Islam religion is the best religion for our people because it creates unity and it gives one dignity and racial confidence and all of these things that are necessary to make a complete human being.
So this generation, especially of our people, have a burden upon themselves more so than at any other time in history. The most important thing we can learn how to do today is think for ourselves. It's good to keep wide open ears and listen to what everybody else has to say. But when you come to make a decision, you have to weigh all of what you heard of its own and place it where it belongs. And then come to a decision for yourself, and you'll never regret it. But if you form the habit of taking what someone else says about a thing without checking it out for yourself, you'll find that other people will have you hating your own friends and loving their enemies. And this is one of the things that our people are beginning to learn today, that it's very important to think out a situation for yourself. If you don't do it, then you'll always be maneuvered into you'll never fight your enemies, but you will find yourself fighting your own self.
Okay, welcome back to Cultivating the Culture. Hope you guys enjoyed those wise words from our brother, Malcolm X. Today I'll be having on the show Brother Jameel Johnson, a brother that I've known since I was a kid, been around his son since I was young, and, brother, a very, 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 very successful and intelligent brother. I'll let him introduce himself.
Jazakallah khairan, brother Tariq. Good to see you. Man, you're all grown up, man. I don't know if you're getting old or if I'm getting old.
I think it's the same thing. I think both are happening.
But maybe I need to cover this up so you don't see all the gray underneath there. But I tell you, I look at it's kind of funny because you mentioned my son Kaif. He turns 27 today, and that makes me realize how much older I'm getting and how long I've been doing this. But thank you, brother Tariq, for having me on the show. As he said, my name is Jameel Johnson. I am the president of the Prince George's County Muslim Council. We are a political civic organization. Our mission is to get the Muslim community involved in the civic and political affairs of the county. The purpose of which is to facilitate our way of life as Muslims, but also to improve the quality of life for all people. Because as we know, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about our importance of our responsibility to our neighbors. Even to the point where they said, the companion said, he spoke about the neighbors so much that we thought that they might have a right to inherit from us. So this is, a lot of what we do and what we focus on. I personally have been involved in politics since about 1984, when Jesse Jackson made his first run for president, and I got involved in a political organization up in Queens, New York. And I've spent about 11 and a half years working in Congress, one for a member from 1987 in his first term, and then another member who took the seat later on, both New York members, where I served as chief of staff for 10 years. And so, not a business I ever planned to get involved in, but I think Allah just guided me into this, really through my mother. So even though I don't work as a job politically anymore, I don't work particularly for government anymore, but I'm still involved in advocacy in government, and now do this with Prince George's County as a volunteer.
Now, you mentioned your mother. You said through your mother. How was that?
Well, my mother, we used to live in the Bronx, just like your dad used to live in the Bronx. When we moved to Queens and bought a house, she had been told by like my uncle, who had lived in another neighborhood in Queens, they were like, get involved in the civic organizations. The point is, you have an investment here, so try to make your community better. So she got involved in the Block Association when I was very young. I'm talking about like 11, 12, 13 years old. She got involved in the Civic Association for the area, and then she got involved politically. And so, she would say, well, can you come to this thing and help us out with this, and can you do that? And when I was in college and they started working on Jesse Jackson's campaign, when I came home for school, she was like, well, why don't you come down and help out, So I helped out to do voter registration, and I saw how one of the things that, just came to my eyes was the issue of, we have a lot of people in this neighborhood, black people, who aren't registered to vote, and who, when you talk to them about it, they got 1,000,001 excuses why they can't be registered to vote. Everybody's got a scheme, and some other address, or I got the situation going on, which has nothing to do with being registered to vote. So that made me realize that I need to do some work in this area.
Can I ask you a question? What do you feel is the importance level of not just registering to vote, but actually voting?
Well, here's the key, and I take this not from those people who just feel that, democracy is this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. I'm a Muslim. I believe in Allah and His Messenger. I believe that the best guidance is the best speech is the speech of Allah, and the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? But even when you look at that guidance, and when I say but, I'm not rejecting that in any way, shape, or form for those who say, if you say but with Allah, The point that I'm making is looking at his life and looking at the works of the scholars, is that Islam provides you guidance on how to deal with issues in whatever situation that you are in, yes. Right? So we are not in a situation where we have the Khalifa or we have Sultan and so on and so forth. We are Muslims living in a non-Muslim land. Yes. So that question being put to many of the scholars, they have spoken on it and said that not only is it acceptable for Muslims in a non-Muslim land to vote, and obviously the circumstances, you have to look at the individual circumstances, but in some cases it may be wajib for them to vote. And the logic that they come with is that if you have, say, let's say your ideal situation is here, mm-hmm. and right now you're here, that which can bring you closer to this is something that you should pursue. And one of the examples that was used is that if two people are running, let's say neither one of them is Muslim, both of them are Christian, whatever the case may be, one of them is going to win. Which means that whether you're involved or not, they're going to win. They're going to either be representing you or they're going to be the head of the government, depending upon the position that they're running for. So if you have an opportunity to have a relationship with the two with them, and one of them is willing to either offer the Muslims less harm or more good, then you get involved with that one and support that one. And perhaps you can even, especially if you have leaders who are able to negotiate certain things to benefit the Muslims, yes. Then you want to put that one in place. Because saying I'm going to stay out of it doesn't mean that person's not going to get elected and that you're not going to be subject to the things that they do. Yes. Sometimes people act as if we don't get involved in registering and voting, then whatever they do is not going to affect us. And that's ridiculous. In 2016, you had a man run for president, and he said, if it's up to me, I'm going to ban all Muslims from entering the United States. He said things like, I believe Islam hates us and all this other, nonsense.
Lies.
Within a week of him being in office, one of his first executive orders was to ban Muslims from certain countries from entering the United States. He said he was going to do it. I got to give it to him for being a man of his word. He said he was going to do it, and that's what he attempted to do. Now, there were a few court cases he had to go through, but he did end up creating a fitna for a lot of our brothers and sisters that came from different parts of the world. A fitna which is now, by supporting someone else, is being lifted from them. Now, I know some brothers and sisters who are like, well, you're not from so-and-so, so why do you care? Two problems with that. One is the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made it very clear that if one part of the body is hurting, then the whole body is in pain. So if this is affecting my brothers and sisters from Somalia, from Nigeria, from Syria, or from Iraq, from Pakistan, and we can go on and on and on, then it has effect on me because they're part of the body. Two, wisdom says the first thing that someone does when they're trying to demonize people is what they kind of put out in the media and what they do. Then the next thing they do is they pass a certain law against those people. It's like saying all the Jews in Germany must wear the Star of David, right? So you identify those people and you constantly demonize them and you see what society accepts.
Yes.
So you can start out by saying, I'm banning Muslims from other countries. You see what the reaction is, and next thing you know,
start pushing the line.
Yeah, that's right. You start pushing the line. I'm going to ban the masjids from being open past this time, and step by step by step.
So before we go into questioning about the organization, I want to ask you, because I feel like there's a preconceived notion on when you say politics, but when you throwing around getting into politics, you make it sound a little more simplistic than probably what most people think. What would you advise people, especially young people, on just finding a way to get into politics without having to go to law school, without having to, actually get a formal education, university, and being able to do what they can do in their community now instead of waiting until they have it?
Exactly. That's a very good point. And I think it needs to be understood is that getting involved, and let's use two terms that are not completely interchangeable, but they're related. And that's why they're part of our mission. There's civic involvement, there's political involvement.
Okay.
And civic involvement is anything that you can really do as a part of improving your community, your society, right? And usually it's related to the responsibilities of government, right? So I'll give you, for instance, one of the things that came up recently, we had a discussion with the two council members at large for Prince George's County, Chairman Calvin Hawkins and member at large Mel Franklin. One of the things that came up, obviously, is this issue of support that's being offered to deal with the coronavirus, right? Which is why I have the mask on, because I want to make sure we're setting a good example. And the thing is that there are churches where you can go and get the vaccine. That as they're disseminating the vaccine, and they're trying to disseminate it in various areas. Some places are hospitals. I think they're all using the sports and learning centers. Another place, but there are some, at least a couple of major churches where you can also go to. So we talked on the call about, and this was call is open to anybody in the community. We had talked about the issue of having the masajids, having, say, one or more of the masajids be a vaccine facility. So we're talking to one now who's interested in doing it, and we're trying to find out the particulars of getting that done. So that kind of thing, that's civic involvement. Being a facility where you can, pick up food for people, a lot of people are struggling. Some of us have been able to keep our jobs, alhamdulillah. But there are other places, you see what's happening with a lot of the restaurants and, people who worked in social, there's this, they're struggling. So being able to do that is a part of it. Just being involved in things like the PTA, When our kids were in school, particularly at Roosevelt High School, typically either my wife or myself was at the PTA meeting. So these are all kind of things that you can do to become civically involved. Now, and you don't have to be, it has nothing to do with education.
No.
It has to do with intention and taking the time.
Yes.
That's what that's really about. Politically, you don't have to have a certain type of education. That's usually for people who really want to get involved in it like as a job. Okay. They want to run, they want to work for the councilman or the council, they want to work on Capitol Hill. That's like, getting yourself trained for any other job. But it doesn't mean that you can't register to vote. It doesn't mean that you can't go down to the Board of Elections and be trained as someone to register other people to vote. Once you're 18, you can do that.
Okay.
And so you can set yourself up, at the shopping mall or at the corner and say voter registration, as long as you are nonpartisan.
Really?
You can't tell people to register as a Republican or Democrat.
Yes.
or anything else. But yeah, you can go to, we've done, it's been difficult now because of the coronavirus, but we used to go around to different masajids and have a voter registration day, at PGMA or Masjid al-Hikmah or the Diyanet Center or Dar Salam, Laurel, whatever the case may be, to do voter registration. And that's something anybody can be involved in. So there are many ways to come out and help. One of the most important things sometimes that people need to do, especially when you have an organization like PGC, when we say we're having a meeting with this elected official, that agency, whatever the case may be, we just need you to come out.
Yes.
So that when those elected officials look out in that audience, they see an audience full of the Muslim community, and they know better get on top of this.
These people have backing.
That's right.
Okay. So, in regards to PGCMC, Prince George's County Muslim Council,
Correct.
can you let them know your title and history of the organization and why it got started?
Okay. Well, I'm president of the Prince George's County Muslim Council. We've been around since 2008. Actually, we were called together. It's kind of a funny situation because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm from New York. So I was working for a member of Congress for New York for the first time. I moved to Maryland when he offered me the job in his office. And so it was like, I need to come down to this area because I'll be working in the Capitol. I'll be working on Capitol Hill. And it was like, okay, so where are we going to live? So my wife and I had been looking around. I had friends in this area. So we settled on Maryland. Initially, actually, Columbia.
Okay, yeah.
But for the entire time that I was working on Capitol Hill, I was a registered voter in New York.
Okay.
I literally would go back to New York every election to go vote. I used to joke around and say that I was an expatriate from New York.
Okay, yeah. Transplant.
But a woman in my office who's also from Queens would say, you really need to get the Muslim community involved. And what happened was many of those years I was on the Hill and issues would come up where the Muslim community was just cannon fodder, for other people's issues. And you would say, look, guys, I need y'all to get involved. I had my member meet with some of the imams in New York, and it's just like the Muslim community just was not doing anything, I remember there was a situation where an organization, matter of fact, it was CARE, and they tell the story too, where they asked me, can you get your member to support this particular issue? I can't remember what the issue was. It was a long time ago. And I said, okay, here's what I need you to do. I need you to get people, even if they're not from my district, get people from New York to call our office saying they support this so the member can see the support for it. And you know how many calls we got behind that?
How many?
0. Not one.
And that's what tends to happen. Oh, give 1 second. I believe we have a call right now. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing? Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. Just calling to make a comment on this the subject here. I actually typed it in, but I was asked to call in instead of yes.
Okay. Can you let us know your name and shoot your question?
My name is Yassine. I'm calling from PG County.
Okay.
Here in Atlanta, Maryland.
Okay.
And my subject, my question had to do more with the subject of voting, and yes, the scholars have ruled on that. But what happens is that I find that we start canceling out each other's votes because we're not a united bloc. We're not a united bloc politically. We're not a united bloc financially or economically, and so forth. So that really dilutes our ability to have an impact. So that, that's a larger subject. I know that's not the subject, entirety of today's guest.
No, but it's just as important.
Right, but yeah, definitely important. I'd like to see you do a show on that in the future. One of the things I deal with is group economics for our community. So back to the voting, one of the problems we have is that there are people from our community who support and vote Democrat, Republican, Independent, and so forth. So therefore, we end up canceling out, diluting the power of our vote as a bloc. We don't have that. And so we ended up with Ilhan Omar, for instance. She's a big supporter of LGBTQ. This is not something that Muslims have even an option in reality, not even an option because of our belief system to support. And now she's sponsoring a bill that's going to impact masajid and schools, not just Muslim, but all religious organizations or all the organizations, period. So, this gender thing going into the bathrooms, all of that we've been hearing about, all of us are familiar with it. So, yes, we should be using our political power, our economic power, because really they work hand in hand. And to make change, to encourage, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us in the Quran, it's not a suggestion, but rather an order to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. And so we, as a community, we exemplify unity. If we exemplify unity and encouraging people toward that which is beneficial and good, I think we'll open up doors. I've seen it happen. I've been Muslim since 1978. And so, and I've lived in different parts of the world, so I've seen the impact of unity. I've seen the impact of Muslims doing great things. I was part of, in 1988 through 1990, the anti-drug, anti-crime in Brooklyn, New York. In fact, I was a security officer and on the shore at Mr. Taqwa at that time, and I, used to go around and help communities organize. The non-Muslims came out and asked us, other communities in general just came in, Jewish communities, Christian communities, didn't matter, and said, please come assist us, help us organize our communities and do what you're doing there. So that's just, the point. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, well, shukran. Thank you for calling in, brother.
That's one. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. And
can I comment on that?
absolutely.
Alhamdulillah. I appreciated the brother's conversation. And I think one of the interesting things about what he said, number one, let me mention, I would love that brother to reach out to info. He can send an email to info at pgcmc.org.
Okay.
And he can also go to our website so he can become a subscriber to our newsletter, which keeps you up to date on the things that we're working on. And that's at www.pgcmc.org. And what I find interesting, my brother, about your conversation, you talked about being a part of the, trying to move the drugs out in front of Master Taqwa at Brooklyn, and he took a shahada in 1978. I took my shahada in 1988. Where did I take it? I took it at Master Taqwa in Brooklyn. Who gave me my shahada that day? Imam Siraj Wahaj gave me my shahada that day. So obviously we have a lot in common. And he does make a very interesting point about the issue sometimes of when it comes to us deciding what we're going to support and not support. The issue of, one, coming together as a bloc, having leadership, people who understand what the positions are of the various people who are running for office, those who are already elected officials, strategically how you work, and taking shorter so that you can move the community together. Because now there may be sometimes strategically when you do put people in different camps so that whoever wins, you have a voice in that camp. But even that should be decided through shorter. That in this case we should all go this way because we know we can move, we have enough votes to move what happens. In some cases you may say we need to put a handful of people over there because it's going to be a close race and that person has a good chance of winning, so, or maybe that person even has a better chance of winning, so we want a handful of people in that camp too, so we have access. But it's something you have to work together on. And one of the things that we are big on at PGCMC is we're not simply interested in supporting issues because that's what's popular in the country right now. We're doing this for the purpose of, like the brother said, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. So, we oppose things like gambling when it came up on the referendum. We oppose gay marriage when it came up on the referendum. And it's not a question of not having compassion for certain people who may feel a certain way, but at the same time, we have to guide people to that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says.
It's also not on our current agenda. You wouldn't walk into a certain place or arena and ask for certain things when that's not necessary and that's not pertinent to what these people are going through right now and what they need to grow and succeed. Like you're saying, like he was saying, towards economic growth.
Yes.
We're not going to be voting on certain things like that when we're trying to decide on what money needs to come in here, how these people need to get vaccines, like you said, and move towards economic growth. We can talk about personal issues, and we can talk about lifestyle issues another time, and vote on it in different scenarios, or different days.
But I think we must be consistent with our deen. The whole point for us is to give dawah, to guide people toward, because remember, people use the term success in many ways, and sometimes it's appropriate, but we know the Quran talks about the true success and those who are truly successful, and that refers to the day of judgment. If you are successful on that day, you have lived a successful life. If you fail on that day, your life has been a failure. So we want to be successful on the day of judgment by following al-Furqan, the criteria that Allah and His Messenger set forth for us. And that's why we are politically and civically involved.
Okay. Let me ask you, so far, what impact have you seen from the organization? And what steps have you seen being made by it? And that's what you want to take larger steps and, make more growth towards that direction. Well,
let me talk about some basic things and then some very specific political wins, right? So one of the things that's come into play is that we have been able to, through our involvement, both our civic involvement and our campaign involvement, we've been able to help certain people win office, right? So, for instance, we've supported people like State Delegate Eric Barron. And I often use him as an example because of the fact that when he first ran for a state delegate seat, and I should remember the numbers offhand by now, he won by 220 votes to get that last position, because in the state delegate seats, there are 3 state delegates, so the top 3 vote getters win. Okay. So he was the third in his first run by 220 votes. But that was among something like, and I hope I don't get the thing completely wrong, maybe like 30-something thousand votes cast. So you see, a small amount of votes can make a difference between winning and losing. And he was somebody that we supported. Some of us who had the ability gave money toward his campaign, and we advocated for his campaign. Alhamdulillah, he was able to win. And some of it is, a lot of it is getting the elected officials to know our community. So a couple of things that we've been able to work on and be successful with is like, all right, Ramadan is coming up. It's about to be Shaban. Ramadan is coming up very shortly. And for the first year, the public schools are going to be closed on May 12th for Eid al-Fitr in Prince George's County. That came directly from an effort that we took up working with the Board of Education, led by people like Rahila Ahmed, Sonia Williams, Paul Montero, Edward Burrows, and I shouldn't have mentioned all those names because I'm going to forget one. But also working with the CEO of the schools, Ms. Goldson, bringing her out to the Muslim community, to the DNet Center, so we could talk to her about those issues and others. And we were able to inform the community that there was going to be a vote on the calendar, and we did, and it ended up winning. Now we have to keep that momentum going. That's something really important to us. We're working with another Muslim group on the issues of rights for the prisoners in the Upper Marlboro prison. That's important, and inshallah, hopefully getting, there's like Christian chaplains there, but there's no Muslim chaplain there. So we're working with our county council to hopefully get some money for a Muslim chaplain there. Because having somebody on the inside, we have brothers who are working from the outside trying to make sure that the Muslims have what they need on the inside. But it'll be better if we actually have a chaplain there, because he'll have a seat at the table every day as things are going on. So those are some of the things that we're working on now. Previously, we were able to work with some other, interfaith communities to actually stop a bill from going through the county council that would have made it more difficult for religious facilities to expand their usage. Because there was a council member who was opposing, the masjid in College Park, and he put forth a bill that would have kept the various religious facilities from from expanding their usage. So we were able to work with other faith communities to reach out to county officials and say, we oppose this and this is why. So by the time the hearing came on, the person pulled the bill because he said he became aware of the fact that it was not going to be successful, so he pulled it. So sometimes it's not just what you get past. Yes. Sometimes it's what you stop from getting past. Mm-hmm.
Real quick, you said expanding their usage. What did you mean by usage?
Well, for instance, when you have a facility, you get usage permits. This facility can be used for such and such and so on and so forth. It can house this many people. You can have this there, a school, a religious facility, whatever the case may be. Yeah. But sometimes as you grow, you want to offer more services to your community. So you may say, hey, we want to open up a store. We want to do this. We want to do that.
That's what
we want to open up a daycare, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, and these are the kind of stories that people need to hear, because a lot, there's a misconception that those things are not possible. They're just happening. Like votes that have been shut down, these things are going on behind closed doors, essentially, but the doors open to everybody. And the meetings are accessible to everyone. And the more people we have come out, then those things come to light and people are more privy to it, and you can get ahead of them because there's a lot that have slipped through the cracks that we would like to take back at this point. And it was very easy for us to stop it from getting to that point. And so it was great for people to hear those kind of things and see how easy it is to make that change.
Now, let me also be very straight up. Yes, there are a lot of things that are hiding in plain sight. Something gets voted on at a community meeting, and people say they didn't know about it, and they say the meeting's open to everybody. Yes. I'll give you a very simple thing. How many people have actually gone onto the Prince George's County, the government website, given them an email where they send out information regularly about what's going on with the county? The county council sends out the email. The county exec has an email that they send out. The members of the county and the state send out information all the time. A lot of people, infants, don't know. Matter of fact, we just sent it out in an email about the state delegates going to offer scholarships to Maryland schools. So if your child's going to a school in Maryland, you can get a scholarship for a few $1,000s from your state delegate. A lot of people don't know that because they're just not paying attention to the information. So one of the things that we do also is just disseminate this information, which is publicly available, to our community in the hopes that they'll take if they see something that's beneficial for them, to take advantage of it. But here's the other thing: when you talk about behind closed doors, people will fill out to communities and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think about it?" If you have an organization that's politically involved, you're more likely to get one of those phone calls that say, "Hey, this is something that we're taking a look at. What do you think?" Because they want to know, they want to put that trial balloon out there and see how you feel about it and let them know the direction that you're going in. But they're not going to do that to every individual person. They're going to do it to the ones they feel have political influence. So if you're the type of community that has, if there's a county executive meeting that's open to the public, and you show up with 50 or 100 people, and you have leadership, they're going to be like, we better talk to that leadership.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely. So let me ask you, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges so far in getting the Muslim community involved?
Well, I think it's like some of the things we talked about. It's getting better. Mm-hmm. But, for a long time, I think we were dealing with, I would say, 3 different elements. One element was the astaghfirullah element.
Okay.
Astaghfirullah ki, this is not Sharia, we should not be involved, democracy is kufr, yada yada, and all this other stuff, without really looking at the seerah and understanding from the ulama, some of which, from what I have been reading, Allah knows best, started to take better looks at these issues and offering, I would say, broader advice, or broader nasiha to the community. So you had that issue of, I remember going back with that for years. We just shouldn't be involved. Then you had the cultural issues. So, for instance, you've had, how many years did this country try to keep black people from being involved, right? And obviously, we're like a third of the whole community or more, right? So getting people, I remember, I'll give you an example. I was, a Muslim brother ran for Congress up in the Baltimore area after Elijah Cumming passed away. I was out in, helping to hand out information for him and so on and so forth. I don't know how many black brothers, forget about the Muslim community, how many black brothers were like, "Man, don't even talk to me about that, man. I ain't trying to hear about that, man. I ain't involved in that politics, man. It has nothing to do with Islam." So we already have kind of that, just like with the vaccine. And I don't know, I'm in the Tuskegee expert, and we understand that. Yeah. We understand that. But you have that from our culture. I remember talking to some brothers up in Boston, Islamic Society of Boston, a lot of them of our background. And they asked me to speak about the fact that, about the importance of being involved. And they were saying, "Brother, you have to understand, where a lot of us come from, you don't want to talk to the government. And if the government wants to talk to you, it's a problem." So we're used to staying away from that. So we're not used to a government culture that says, "Be involved, we want your opinion." So you have, between the religious understanding that people had, or the understanding they were given, and the cultural backgrounds, it was very hard. Besides, many times, political success in policy, I should say policy success, is slow. It's not immediately transitional. It's not like, "Hey, I wanted to buy the house, I put the down payment, I got the house." It can be, you can take years to pass a piece of legislation. And you have to keep on with it. You have to keep on with it. Like the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Quran says, وَتَوَصَّلْ بِالصَّبْرِ, right? Consistency. You have to be patient, consistent. So sometimes people don't see the success very quickly, and they lose their patience with it. So that has been a challenge. But I have seen that grow. And the interesting issue is, unfortunately, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about whatever difficulty there's relief, it's many times been the difficulty that's gotten more people involved. So 9/11, and when the government started coming down on the Muslim community, then it was like, what do we do about get help? Well, maybe you better get politically involved. The Muslim ban.
Yes.
It's like, oh, this guy got elected, he's banning the Muslims. Maybe we better get involved.
Yeah.
So what happens is, it seems like many times, unfortunately, but if Allah so wills, it's the fitna that gets people to realize maybe we better do something and not just sit around and wait and hope that things go well.
And a lot of times I wouldn't say it's too late, but it's in the midst of the chaos, trying to.
We have a saying. I'm a lobbyist. I'm a federally registered lobbyist. We have a saying. If you hire a lobbyist when you need one, it's too late. You got to hire them before you need them. So to develop those relationships, get people to understand what it is that you're doing.
Okay. Cool. How you doing?
How you doing?
Wa alaikum assalam. Can you tell us your name and shoot your question?
My name is Tariq. Tariq.
Wow, that's a familiar name, sir.
How you doing?
Good. So what's your question?
Okay. Well, the question is, how do you deal with issues like we have a lot of things where things are considered anti-Semitic, and but it's basically the reason why they back it up is because it's religious, and I find there's a lot of similarities, things that are done with us as far as Muslims. How can we bring it together to take advantage of all the work? So just as they say when you make a statement and that's anti-Semitic, and the repercussions that come with it, also should be the same type of repercussions that come with it when they talk about Islam or even Christianity to a certain extent. How do you deal on the political level with that, like I said, taking advantage of what the Jewish community has done? Because I think it seems like exclusive just for them when you make these statements or do certain actions, but I don't see them following through with the Muslim community or
the Christian community
as much.
Okay.
Okay, it's really about the efforts that it's not like a secret sauce or magic. It's really about the efforts that the community is putting forth toward it, right? So let me give you an example. You have, say, an advocacy group that says, elected official, we would like you to do this. The official says no. And I'm not getting specific, but I'm actually talking about a real-life situation. I'm sure multiple real-life situations, but situations that I've been in. The elected official says no initially. And then, or their staff, or whatever, says no initially. Then next thing you know, you get all kinds of people from that elected official's district who support that advocacy group and says, how come you're not supporting this thing? So in essence, there's a connection between the advocacy organization and people that support that organization.
Yes.
So the advocacy organization is the one that does the lead work, like these are the issues, and they go speak with the officials. And then they let their supporters know how the official has responded. So if the official responds well, they tell their supporters, and then people say, hey, we thank you for supporting us on this issue, and so on and so forth. If the official disagrees with them, next thing you know, you get constituents, and this is the key thing. Constituents calling saying, we understand you don't support this issue, and we want to know why, and we have a problem with that, and so on and so forth. And they show up to the town hall, or they write letters, they send emails, and they do this kind of thing to the point where the person feels like, I better support that issue, otherwise I'm going to have a problem. But that also means that the community as a whole has to do a couple things. One, they have to be willing to support the organization with their work and financially. Because if you don't have, you mentioned economics early on, and the brother who called before mentioned economic putting out dollars together. If the organization is not financially strong, it makes it more difficult to monitor things and respond to them quickly. Because everybody who's doing it is doing it like after work, on the weekends, and so on and so forth. So they need to be financially strong, and that's something that we don't do. Secondly, the community, and it's never going to be everybody, but you have to have a certain amount of effort by the community in regards to, if the advocacy organization sends out an email and says, I call to action, alert, call your elected officials, do this, that, and the other, then the community has to respond. If the community doesn't respond, it's like, I once heard an elected official I worked for back in '87 say this. He said this to his community at a town hall. He said, it's like me being the general. I'm the general. I may give you marching orders on certain things. He said, but if I don't have you behind me as my army, I'm useless.
Yes.
And it's the same thing. So if you have an organization like PGCMC, we have to have an army but behind us so we can fight that battle. So right now, what you don't have, Brother Tariq, is enough people in that army that help fund. During World War II, what do we? I think the country sold war bonds, right? So you had enough money for the army to fight that battle, right? So you have to financially support your institutions, and that's what PGCMC is striving to be, an institution that can go on beyond people like myself and other members who are involved. And so we'll be able to respond that way. We'll be able to first stay on top of the information, and then be able to respond on behalf of the community, and ask the community to respond.
Mr. Lane?
Okay, so what ways can they assist? Like you mentioned your webpage. What ways can people assist as far as whether it's financially, whether it's join an organization? Is it going through your .org page, or do you have GoFundMe pages? What do you have to for the people to be able to help or find out how they can volunteer?
Well, appreciate that. If they go to our website, pgcmc.org, and also, follow us on the usual things. We have a LinkedIn page, and this way you can keep informed. But to really help, go to pgcmc.org. We have memberships. That's one of the ways we get money. We have donations. Anybody can make a donation. We have a page for volunteers. So if somebody says, hey, I'm really good with media. I'd like to be involved. I'm really good strategically. I'm good with IT, and I think, I can help you with your website, or using some other devices to get the word out better that maybe you're not using. All of those kind of things. If somebody says, hey, I live in a particular neighborhood, can I help be the connection between PGCMC and this particular elected official where I live? And I can get my neighbors involved. Or I go to this masjid, and I want to be kind of the person who is at the masjid, kind of represents PGCMC, so we can get the information out to our community. So there are many ways that people can assist, but I will definitely say, and of course, as we always say, the most important thing is dua. But when we say the most important thing is dua, it doesn't mean to stop there. the Messenger of Allah asked the people to pray, but he also asked them to donate. So go to pgcmc.org and donate. But we also need everybody has talents. And as some brothers say, you can get in where you fit in, or get into your lane and help where you can. So there are multiple ways to do it. And if anybody has questions, they can always send an email to info@pgcmc.org, and we'll respond to that.
Okay. Well, may Allah continue to reward you and your family and your members for the work you guys are doing to be able to aid the community, the Muslim community and the regular community, because we are an active part of our society and a good part of our society. So, assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Let me ask you, do you have anything right now that's on the table?
Yes, we do. Let me mention a few things that are coming up. On March 30th, from 7:45 to 8:45, we have an evening with Representative Anthony Brown. Representative Anthony Brown is a member of Congress representing the 4th District of Maryland, which covers parts of Prince George's County as well as parts of Anne Arundel.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to repeat that again. Give me 1 second. Let's take this call.
About Imam Jameel, formerly known as H. Brown, and ask the community to get involved in it.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for calling in to Cultivating the Culture.
Yes, you look just like your father, I want to mention. I thought you were him.
Thank you.
He sounds like him too.
I just really want to mention one thing.
Okay.
I recently we talking about involvement like the brother was just talking about.
Yes.
I recently got involved with Jameel El-Amin's freedom effort, formerly known as H. Brown. You've heard of him, haven't you?
Of course.
Okay, I just really wanted to make a statement as a reminder for the people to seek information and stir up the organization, so that they can, reach out more in more different areas. And I know their hands are kind of tied, so that's why I'm making this statement. So, please reach out to them and ask other people to reach out to them, so that we can help free the brother, inshallah.
Okay. And you said, can you repeat the name again for everybody?
Waleed Abdul-Razak. I apologize.
No, okay. And for who to reach out to?
Actually, they can reach out to me if they want to.
Okay.
At 910-429-4811. Because that'll get me more involved.
Okay. Shukran, thank you for calling in, brother.
Afwan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam. Okay. So, yeah, if you could you go through the agenda?
Yeah. So, for instance, we're going to have that evening with Anthony Brown on March 30th, from 7:45 to 8:45. And if you go to pgcmc.org, you can RSVP for that. But it'll be streamed live on both our Facebook page on our YouTube page. Okay. And you can send in questions through both. But if people want to send in questions now for Anthony Brown, they can send in those questions to info@pgcmc.org.
Okay. We got one more call. Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, next week we're doing a show about Jameel El-Amin.
Oh, okay. Well, mashallah, yeah. So next week we're doing a show about Jameel El-Amin. Okay. Thank you. Yes?
Okay. Yeah, next week we'll be doing a show about Jameel El-Amin. I didn't know it was on air. Next week we'll be doing a show about Jameel El-Amin.
Okay.
Going from activist. It's called The Evolution of a Revolutionary. And so going from an activist with the Black Panthers to being a political prisoner and a positive Islamic influence. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, well. There goes your preview for next week's episode.
Yep.
Okay. What? Do you have anything last to add about the organization, or just anything at all?
Yeah, I think what I'd like, talk about a few things that are coming up. Like I mentioned, March 30th with Representative Brown. We're also planning a program for Juneteenth.
Okay.
And it's going to be called What's in a Name? And it's the significance of facility and place names in the African American and other communities of culture. Other communities of color. And what it's really about is the fact that, ever since last year's, and, we're dealing with these anniversaries, the unjust shooting of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery's assassination, the death of George Floyd by the police. And, one of the things that we've been looking at is the fact that we need to get rid of this love for America's racist history, right? So even in Congress, Congress overrode a veto by President Trump of a military spending bill that called for the changing of military bases named after Confederate leaders. So there are changes in those names. Prince George's County has a school renaming commission. Virginia is looking at, they're renaming highways, schools, and so on and so forth. Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson. Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy, is going through these changes. So we're going to be looking at that with some interfaith members, scholastic scholars from schools, academicians, on the importance of naming, because as we know, people say, well, you're erasing people from his history. No, history is history, and history should be written and learned and understood. But when you put up a statue of someone,
yes,
when you name a school after someone, when you name a place after someone, you're basically saying that that is one of our honored past. And if that person was a slave owner, you are honoring what they used to do. If that person led basically an insurrection against the United States,
yes, cool,
and you say that you are an American patriot, then how are you honoring someone who led an insurrection against the country that you supposedly are patriotic to?
Absolutely.
And especially when, I don't care what anybody says, you can look it up, anybody who says this was about states' rights and not about slavery is either ignorant or lying to you. And all you have to do is look at, in the individual states, starting with South Carolina, which was the first one to secede. You look at them, you can look at Georgia, look at Alabama, and you look at their articles for succession, which you can Google. Not having information these days is ridiculous. You can Google it, the articles of succession for their states, and they name over and over again the bills that they voted for on their state floors were about the fact that the North was not, they felt the North was not meeting its obligations under the Fugitive Slave Act and returning slaves. And they felt that under President Lincoln, because he had already been elected in November, South Carolina seceded in December of 1860, that they felt with this new president, he's going to eliminate slavery. So we are leaving. So when you're honoring these people, so this is something that we're going to discuss the importance in communities of color about having not having have things named after the wrong people, and why it needs to be named after the right people, and how it's an effect on youth.
Okay. And so just to clarify, Juneteenth is June 19th.
Correct.
And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've lived in Houston for a while. They don't really celebrate Juneteenth up here so much, or it's not a regularly practiced day?
Yeah, that is correct. That may change, Allahu Alam.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting because you're seeing a bit of a cultural awakening. I remember even amongst America's financial institutions, there was a discussion of, should we close our offices on Juneteenth? Now, if that rolls back around again to this June, we'll see. At the time, the whole Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd issue, Breonna Taylor issue was up, so people were talking about all kinds of stuff. But, we tend to have short memories. So we'll see what happens when this Juneteenth comes around. And if you see, like, I believe if it was all of Maryland, but definitely Prince George's County, when they look at Columbus Day now, they're now referring it to as Indigenous Peoples Day. So people are becoming more conscious of these issues. So, Allahu Alam.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you coming out today, coming out and spreading this message. Like you said, I encourage everybody to go out to whatever county you're in, go online, look at the websites, register, get part of the newsletters, just have things coming in consistently to where you know what's going on within your community and you know what ability you have to make a change in that community. He said it many times. If you have any questions for him or any questions about the Prince George's County Muslim Council, you go to info@pgcmc.org or the website pgcmc.org. And in regards to next week's show, you heard Brother Tariq bring up, we'll be having a discussion about Jameel Alameen, Evolution of a Revolutionary. And thank you guys for coming in and watching Cultivating the Culture. Hope you learned something and hope you guys take steps to creating a better community and a better Muslim council for us all.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Tariq. Thank you very much for having us on.
Thank you.